Alright, I get a lot of videos on what are the options that you can do to your Geo. You're going to see the light move around a little bit here and stuff. I've got my overhead light in the engine compartment here that I use. And then I've got my headset on here, so when we look down in here we can see without all the shadows, as you'll note. Yeah, that's going to be much better. So what I want to do is I'm going to go over and show you some of the things that you can do to your Geo that'll make it easier to maintain and better gas mileage. And I want to start on this side of the motor. Maintenance wise, the best thing, I think maybe actually the best thing you can do is you can do what we call the timing belt update or cut back. And what we have here is this is the timing belt. I mean I'm sorry, not timing belt, timing cover. Give me just a second here. Should have grabbed this to start with. Let's look at a timing cover here. And this is just a grungy one that was taken off the core motor. But you've got your, oh, this is nasty. Oh, that's what happens when you have a rear seal leak or front seal leak. So you got your timing marks here. And when you're looking at it like this, you've got this hole right here and this bolt hole right here. And when you want to do this update, you're going to cut just right through here, just above and below that. So you're just going to take this little stripe out right here so you can still bolt it up, and that'll give you your timing marks. Let me set the cover down here. Grab a rag and wipe this grease off. Holy smokes. I'll grab the greasiest one on the shelf. So what you've got here is this one has already been updated. So it's cut off on the top and the bottom, so it's just that one stripe that goes through there. You've got your connection bolt here and the one that's behind the water pump pulley. But now what this allows you to do is access the lockdown for the tensioner, and you can put a 12 wrench in here. And I will put a 12 in to show you, because this is what everybody's looking for. You can reach in here with a 12 wrench right behind the water pump pulley, and you can get right on that and break that loose. And then when you loosen this 10 up, you can set the tension on your timing belt. It's that simple. When it's time to do, and the reason, you know what, let me go a little farther than that. And the reason for this is now when you pop the hood open to check the oil every 400 or 500 miles, maybe you do it every 800 miles or something on your second tank, at the gas station, you can just pop it open and you can just go, you know, the tension, it's like this belt right here. It's just perfect here. But if it was to get a little bit loose, you know, when you got home that evening or when you got a chance, you can take and you can make the adjustment and tighten it or loosen it, because the belts do stretch a smidge, and they do need a little readjustment here and there, but over a period of time they do need to be adjusted a couple of times. And almost all failures on timing belts are simply because you've gotten out, you know, maybe 2 or 3 years and the belt's just stretched out a little bit and it's gotten loose, and the belt's able to rise up during acceleration and tear the teeth off. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind with a timing belt is we don't actually put any tension on it. Properly, excuse me, you've got your spring down here that pulls on it, and it just barely puts any tension on the tensioner. Everything's nice and free. If you were to not use the spring, which I technically don't, a properly tensioned timing belt slides on the pulley about like that. If you can see that, I'm pretty sure you can. Watch the edge of the belt here. But this camera's way better than my eyes. But see if I can push that thing. Because we're not carrying the load by tensioning against the pulley. We're just keeping the belt down so the teeth are fully engaged in the sprocket. And then the teeth, and then depending on what kind of belt you're using, the carbon fiber or the cords in it are carrying the load. So the teeth carry the load, but the belt, if you get the belt tight, if you can't move it with your fingers, you're actually ruining the bearing. It's amazing how little tensioner that guy just comes up if I didn't have the water pump pulley on there, you should be able to actually grab that tensioner bearing or idler bearing and actually kind of turn it and spin it off the belt. It's just there for a little bit of assist. So this is how you set it. You don't need anything. You don't need any manuals. You don't need anything. You just need to be able to move it back and forth and see that it's most people would think that's a loose belt because you're used to dealing with serpentine or V belts, and it would be a loose belt if it was. But when you get to teeth, a cogged belt, it's all about the teeth. We just want to make sure the belt's just tight enough that when it revs up, it can't rise up and shear the tooth off. Excuse me. This will allow you to run a belt a lot longer than you'll ever should. You'd be surprised if there's people out there that actually keep checking their timing belt and they just keep running them and running them and running them. You know, I always tell everybody at 10 years or at least 100,000 miles, change them. And then I know other people that, well, like for instance, on my daughter's car, I actually, every time I tune it up about every 30,000 miles, I just slip a new timing belt on it. This timing belt can be had if you shop around, sometimes for $10 or $15 at a parts store, and usually like in a Gates or a Goodyear. So you're not even, you know, so you're still getting good quality. And then the beauty of it is here is you make sure that water pump is in there. So the yeah, let me jump in here. So these 4 bolt, so you take the 12 loose on the alternator, and let me grab it. I want to make sure you not only watch this video, but you have the ability to do the service yourself. Because if you don't, it's just you're just watching YouTube for the entertainment value like I do. You got a 12 nut on, or 12 bolt on the back here. That's your tensioning bolt for the alternator. You're going to break that loose. The alternator will pivot up. You can take the belt off. It's just and all I'm talking about is changing the belt. And those people that aren't mechanically inclined, I'm going to just go a little farther for you here. So you're going to loosen this with a 12 wrench. You're going to pull on the belt, and it'll pull the alternator up on its pivot point underneath. And you're just going to slip the belt off the crank pulley. Just simply take it off. It's just changing the serpentine belt, just like a V belt. Then once that's off, you can put a 10 wrench on these 4 bolts right here and break them loose. If they're a little bit tight and they don't take much tension, it's just a few pounds of torque, you can reach in there. I'm going to grab a tool here. Just a simple pair of vice grips. You don't have to crush the pulley or anything, but you're just going to reach in here and set the tension on your vice grip. And it's not much at all because you're only putting a few pounds on that pulley. And you could bend this pulley, but there you go. You can kind of see what I did there. And it's on there pretty good, but no damage, nothing crazy like that. And then you can simply take a 10 wrench and reach in and break the bolt loose, and then spin them in and out with your fingers. And the reason we do that is just because when you have the belt off, the pulley's freewheeling or free spinning. And then when you put it all back together, you can just take that off. It just lets you grab a hold of it. If you have a late model Geo, it has a pulleys that have it's a 4-groove belt. It has holes in here. You can shove a Phillips screwdriver through there if you want and jam it in there, and that'll hold it as well. Let me put my tool away here. Excuse me. And then another thing, unless you're running a propane system, I remove the hose clamps all off of this stuff. It's not going to make a big deal issue. Everything's still going through the filter, but you break down on the side of the road or you're in a hurry to do something. These can be a pain in the butt, and when you just undo it, it all still fits nice and snug and everything, and it just comes on and off really easily. You'll find it's a big time saver, and you know, and I know a lot of people that let me tip the camera here, that even leave the 10 out right here and just use the wing nut on top of the air cleaner to hold the assembly down. This is kind of an alignment deal, but truly this does an alignment for you. A lot of these are cut off, especially when it's got a propane kit on it, because it changes the clocking of the air cleaner. And At any rate, you can take that off, and then you can take the air cleaner assembly off to get in there with just the wing nut. Or you can leave it exactly stock how you want. I'm just telling you what's the easy, fast route for long-term ownership and maintenance. Because really, what always will catch up with you is not doing maintenance, and it's usually because you don't have the tool in your hand, or you got to go get it, or maybe you don't use your garage to work on in your car, so it's out in the driveway, and you got to get your toolbox out and stuff. But if you can just take things off and look at them, change them, look at vacuum lines and stuff every once in a while, that's the kind of stuff that's going to keep you on the road long term. What else for real? There's going to be quite a few things here. Now I use one of these 20 amp AGMs or 22 amp AGM all glass mat sealed batteries. They're inexpensive. They work amazing. They're designed to be completely ran dead. I think it says 500 times before they go bad. We never run them dead in a car with an alternator, and they're just phenomenal. And they're small, lightweight, easy to mount in your. I actually use GM Right stuff or Permatex Right stuff, the GM sealant. I just put it on the back side of it and just set it in here. And this thing is in here just rock solid. I mean, it's never going anywhere. But if you want to take it out, all you got to do is put a little tension on it. Well, that's a lot of tension on it, and hold it, and it'll separate itself, and you can put the next battery in a few years later. That's a great way to go. If you're in cold weather climate areas, they sell the 35 or the 40, and it's like twice as thick. And if you're in a hard start situation, which Geos generally aren't, but the cold weather, if it's tapping into your battery because it's 0 or 20 below or something crazy, I'd go with the bigger battery. But out here on the West Coast, this is phenomenal, and much better than a lead acid battery. And the other thing is when you're buying it, if you didn't have a core for whatever, if you're putting a car together that you've bought, because I know a lot of you are doing restorations and you're buying cars that don't run because you're going to replace everything anyhow. That battery will come in the mail, and there won't be a core charge on it, and it's a good way to, you can save $20, $30 even over a Walmart battery. But it's just a great battery to use, and it's the Chrome brand, and they even sell one that has a voltmeter on the top of it and a percentage meter to tell you, well, it just gives you a meter basically on the alternator and a charging system, and it's part of it. And I think they only charge like another $25 for that battery. I think it's for long-term storage, like on Sea-Doos and stuff like that. I use this in my backup generator system for my home, and they just sit for years and years. And if you use a regular lead acid one, I will tell you, after about 18 months or so, if you don't have them on a trickle charger, maybe even with a trickle charger, because I've tried that, they just go bad. And that's the lead acid one. And I should say the liquid lead acid, because this is a sealed lead acid battery. Might even be able to read that on the top here. But it's all glass mat, so it's in glass matting, and far superior battery over a standard one. In fact, the next step up would be a gel cell, I think. But when you read the specs on them, they seem to be about the same, at least in the small stuff. Okay, so that'll get you on the battery thing, and I'm just trying to hit on some of the things on this car that are a little bit different that you can do. Let me drop in here on a little bit of an angle. I think it's right here. I want to show a clutch adjustment. So you've got your clutch arm, and yours might look a little different than this in shape if it's a later model car, because they were cast steel instead of the stamped steel and welded. About a 1/4 inch of play or something. Like this might even be a little loose. And when you do a clutch, this car just had a new transmission synchros put in it, so the clutch cable was in and out. The rubber boot, and I want to make sure you can see my hand up there. Maybe, that's a good question. Try to use a tripod here. I'm always so all over the place with the camera. I wanted to get a good shot. We're going to have to come all the way around here. There we go. There's the shot I'm looking for. Let me zoom in. So that's what we're looking for right there. So the clutch cable is a rubber boot here that slides inside this metal tube. And when you first reinstall it, I don't care if you just take it out and put it back in, you have to step on the clutch pedal a couple of times. And it'll finally suck itself all the way down and seat it. I like to take a little anti-seize and put on the rubber boot so it'll slip down and fully seat. But this one right here, after I've done it, I see it's moved a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the nut in. And your nut should just run with your finger. If it doesn't, take it off, clean the threads and oil them up. And you're just looking for about 1/4 inch. Basically the way a clutch adjustment works is this little bit of slop that you see right here. That means the bearing is not pushing against the flywheel. It's just off of it just a little tiny bit because it's got a spring on the arm holding it back. And we just have just a smidge of space, and it's not even that. I mean, it's just thousandths of an inch inside there. So when you step on the pedal, it starts to push on the pressure plate and collapse it, and that's what disengages the clutch. So now you're riding on the bearing when you're sitting there at the stoplight with your foot on the clutch, and then when you let off, it just comes back and it just pulls the bearing off the fingers of the pressure plate, just a smidge, and that's the gap that you want. So you don't want that tight. You want a little bit of slop. You want to basically, when you smack it, I'm actually making it I can feel it hitting the plate. But if there's movement, as a good rule of thumb, you're good to go. No more than 1/4 inch. You could, but it just makes the pedal feel funky inside. So a clutch adjustment, you just want that arm to not be tight, and you're probably good. Yeah, any kind of slop there, and you're off the pressure plate. When you grab it, you can kind of feel the dead space before it touches. And it's not complicated. Just think 1/4 inch is too much, and anything less is fine as long as it's got movement. Now this particular car has a rebalanced flywheel because the motor has got a rebalanced crank in it to make it run a little bit smoother, because we were chasing some fuel economy with this car. And then it's got a stage 2 clutch in it on a yeah, so basically it's got the stage 2 clutch in it, so it's got a little more bite, longer lasting, and then it's rebalanced. You know what, I can show exactly why it's rebalanced. This might be a good, I just happen to have a motor here on the stand that I was tearing down as a core. Let me show you why we rebalance it. To mind all my mess here on the bench. I wasn't planning on shooting over here. I'm going to run through the stroke of a motor on a Geo. We're at top dead center here, and that is your number 3 cylinder. So this would be over on the driver's side of the car, or your distributor would be. And let me back the camera up a smidge. You can't see what I'm doing. It doesn't help. So your distributor would be over here. Watch as we come around on the cylinders. Okay, so we're all the way up at top dead center on 3. We're coming down, and can you see the piston rising? You know what? Maybe we're going to have to be closer so you can see the piston traveling inside there. So as this one's dropping, this one is rising. So this is the number 1 cylinder. But note, you know what? I'm going to show you. Note, we're at bottom, top dead center right there. See the outside ones working? Let me back up. No, let me just hold the camera, I guess. It's a weird angle to get on the stand here. Watch the outside ones move, and the center one doesn't. That's how much top dead center lag there is right in there. It's right, actually right there. Both outside ones. So we're coming down on that number 3. Oops, I'm going to go the wrong way. There we go. We're going down. And you see the number 1 cylinders coming up. And then we're up on the center one. No cylinder. I'll just go around a few times just to give you an idea what's happening in there. No cylinder is ever up with another one, so the motor can't run smoothly. So we're not talking about it firing and actually running smoothly mechanically. It's just physically cannot be in a balanced position because of the weight. So what we do is we rebalance the crankshaft and flywheel to make the car super smooth at about 2,950 RPM. And that is what makes the motor last really, really long, because if not, it's just got this little harmonic vibration in it. And the truth is that little vibration actually beats the clutch out of it. It's got a little something going on, because when this is done, the clutches start to last about twice as long. And then when you get to stage 2 and 3 clutches, sometimes they don't ever wear out if you're really good on the clutch. But that's the vibration you feel when you're running the car. So when you get your RPM set up at 850 and everything's perfect on your motor, and it's still got that little deal, and I like to say, you should see your shifter moving inside the car about like, oh, I don't know, something like that. You know, there's a little vibration in the car when it's perfect at an idle at a stop sign. You just look down at your shifter and it should have a little vibration. And if nobody's ever rode in the car before with you that knows that the car has a shake to it, they should think that it's a 4-cylinder with a spark plug wire like half pulled off, because it's not quite that aggressive, but it is enough to feel it. And it's also the reason that Geo Metro's had such a terrible sales history, because the cars, well, they just simply didn't run like smooth like a 4-cylinder. Most people bought them, took them home, and thought they were broken. And then nobody trusts a car salesman, so when he told them it was fine, they just said, I'll just take a 4-cylinder, and then they traded them another car, honestly, to keep them happy and to keep the money at the dealership. That was very, very common, to go in and buy a 3-cylinder and then go back and get a 4-cylinder. Alright, that's under the hood too. What else? When you're setting your timing belt, that's the one I wanted to do. I put a 32 gig card in here. I see we're at 21 minutes now, which I don't know if I'm going to edit this or not, so that's a reference for me. Something that you can do if you ever have to change your timing belt, or I shouldn't say if you ever have to, when you do, you know what, I'm going to move the camera around a smidge here, and I'm going to put my light down. I'm going to see if I can get you a shot of the cam pulley. Oh wow, I think I might be able to without the camera on. And then again, maybe I can't. Let's see. Let me feel that thing. Okay. So, this cam pull, when you open this valve cover up, when the cam lobe is pointed into the firewall with the mark on TDC, the mark matched into the notch of the valve cover here. We're going to come over here and look at that too. So you've got this notch right here, and then this one I've painted white, but that notch, when that's lined up, that cam pulley, or yeah, not that cam lobe is pointed to the firewall. Not exactly, but it is pointed there, and it's the only place it can be when that's up. That means you're on TDC. So if you have a cover on your car and you're trying to figure out if the timing belt has jumped or whatnot, you can pop the valve cover off, put your finger in there, see where the cam lobe is. If you're using the mark down below, you can run that up on 0, pull the number 1 spark plug wire out, or spark plug out, put a screwdriver in there, rotate this lower crank pulley until the spark plug's all the way pushed as far as it goes, and then when it starts to go back down, just stop right there, line the mark on 0, put your finger in the valve cover, and if that lobe isn't pointing forward, that means it's jumped on this pulley and it's time to change it to timing belt. That's just a quick, easy reference. And it just allows you, if you can't see this pulley, it just allows you to get past that. Another reason to cut that pulley back, to avoid that, so you can look at the real marks all of the time. And I mean, literally, you can, when you shut the car off, most of the time it stops on top dead center, because that's the compression stroke, and then there's no spark, so it wants to roll up. It's within a few degrees. Sometimes you can reach out with your hand and like bump it the last 4 or 5 degrees, and you can just check the timing marks. And then again, if you want a little more power, you know, you can always rotate this pulley forward a notch, and which isn't like buying a degree cam. Give you a little more power, takes a little fuel economy away, but if you're towing your utility trailer or something, it's a nice little bump that you can do. And it's fast and easy, and you can put it right back when you're done. I used to do it all the time, and now I don't. This particular head has a hill climber head on it. Another thing to do is when you're, I'm going to just jump over here. Let's see if we can see that. Get my light in there. If you can see, there's a scratch mark here, the file I put in there. I set all the timing and stuff, and then I take a file and mark it. So if you ever have to take it back apart, you don't have to get your timing light out or anything. These marks are on. You just take that distributor, rotate it till those scratch marks are lined up, tighten it up, and you're done. You don't have to warm the car up, go through all the nonsense of setting the ignition timing and stuff. Can save you, 30 minutes or something. Let's see, what else are we doing on this particular car? This particular car has HID lights in it, and because the headlight switches in them are always bad in these Metros, when we switch to the HID system, or even when you have a bad headlight switch, instead of buying the headlight switch, it's just going to burn up again, or the wiring underneath the dash or whatnot. Generally what I do is I use the marker light, and then we use a relay kit. That's right here. So if you're looking in this picture and don't see that in your car, that's a new headlight relay that's been added, and it's being turned on and off by the marker lights. Your headlight switch in the car, the running light portion of it will never go out, just the headlight, because the ground wires are too small in the car, and the resistance is so high, it burns up the circuits, mostly the wire connectors. That's an easy, it's a couple hours screw around, and you can wire the headlights up to come on. So then they come on when you turn the running lights on, and it's much more ideal, and it gives you new power wires off the battery. You can run a bigger wire to the headlights, so it's obviously to both of them. Yeah, if you're using HID or not, and if you're using regular headlights, it's a great way to make your headlights not glow yellow. As soon as you get good ground wires and larger ground wires and larger power wires to it, the element in the lighting element in the headlight, obviously it's just a big resistor. It'll fully brighten and it'll go white again like the headlights are supposed to. Again, the wiring in the car factory is terrible, and that's a great update. And most of them by now have burned up a headlight switch. So if you've been in that headlight situation before, or your wiring is burnt up underneath the dash, and there's other YouTube videos I see that people have done on a nice videos on it that show you how to fix the wiring under the dash. But this is ultimately the better way to go, is just to buy a headlight relay kit off Amazon or eBay at your local parts store and wire it in. And again, the running light trigger is the best way to go. And then since I like to mount it next to the relay box that's under here because it's a relay, I just come off and I grab the power wire going to this marker light, and it's a super good way to go. It'll save you some money, and there's nothing scarier than driving a Geo Metro down a road during the middle of the night that has no street lights. I live out in the forest, and the headlight flashes out, and I've had it happen to me more times than I can even remember. The headlights just go dead, and you literally your eyes aren't focused because you were just driving with headlights and stuff, and it can be scary as hell, to be honest with you. I recommend doing that before your headlights go out too. I mean, I put that on your list for the next couple of weekends if you don't already have that. What else do we got going on here that's a super helpful thing? Maybe we'll slide underneath the car. Let me raise it up on the hoist. But now this car in particular, this is something I'm actually have up for sale. So it's been gone through, and I've done all these extra little add-ons and stuff. And mostly I do all these add-ons and stuff because I already have the stuff built. And when I finally get to doing a car, it already takes so long to do it. I'll just grab whatever's off the shelf. So I can get an advantage of a hill climber head and the flywheel and the clutch and all that stuff. And this one needed a battery because the battery wouldn't hold charge and stuff. And then like on this particular car, this is kind of a neat thing. this car was painted a couple of years ago. So, so besides it's got like a, I don't even know if you can see it, but a little couple of rock chips somebody touched up on it, but the paint job's still in excellent condition. And this was a great way to save $1,000 on a paint job on the car. And so whoever ends up with this car eventually kind of gets a almost brand new paint job for nothing, because I have a set way I come up with the price and what I pay for them. And we didn't have to pay any extra for this paint because this particular gentleman didn't value it. He just was selling his Geo like a normal Geo. Let's see, what else? Oh, we're gonna go into the car. I'm gonna raise it up. Hold on a second. Another thing about this particular car that's really neat, and if you watch my other videos, you know how I feel about running the more aggressive tires on it. This has got brand new snow tires on it without studs in it, and they work so much better and they have so much more traction. There's no more getting on the on-ramp and accelerating up on the freeway and the tires break loose and stuff that the regular Geo Metro tires do. I don't know what I'm talking about when you accelerate up the on-ramp. You know, like there's heavy traffic, but it's going at 70 and you really got to race up to it. When you're grabbing second and third gear, a lot of times the stock tires, because of the oil, turn the hoist off, because of the oil and stuff on the on-ramps and stuff, at least here in Washington where it rains all the time, will be a little extra slick. And even like on the freeway when you're doing 60 or something and somebody locks up the brakes, regular Geo tires want to just slide. You know, they're just not very aggressive at all. So when you switch up to these to snow tires without studs in it, or I guess you could call them all-terrain, but I mean honestly they're just snow tires. And these aren't rally tires like I have in other videos on my car. Those are super aggressive racing compounds and stuff. This is just your regular, go to the regular tire shop, just ask them not to put the studs in or pull them out. And it's just a super way to go. And then in the snow, generally you don't even need studs in a Geo. Geos work pretty good in the winter if you got good tires on them. And they're kind of like the Volkswagen Bug of the second half of the last century. But yeah, and you also get about twice as much tread on a snow tire for whatever it's worth. The depth is so I think they're an amazingly good deal because they're about the same price. The tread's a lot deeper, and I think it's like getting two pairs of tires, and you just can't beat the traction. In fact, I'll be over at the farm and drive out into a field and with regular tires on a Geo. If it's rained, I could get stuck on a little hill or something. And on this stuff, when I have these on, you can just drive around, you know. I mean, it's not a four-wheel drive, but, you know, a little common sense will keep you from, well, I've never gotten stuck with them, and I'm not driving like, you know, through a mud hole or to the cow manure piles or anything, but this is just a way better deal. You know, if you've ever pulled out on a soccer field or something when it was raining and got stuck in your car or pickup truck, you know what I mean? Just having a little bit of tread to sink down, you know, it's just that little bit of tread, and it's a little wider, so it just lets the car sink down in the mud a little tiny bit, and then gives you that traction. Anyhow, that's something that this car has. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to not edit this video because I am super lazy. And I'm going to pop this camera off and unplug the charger that I have hooked to it because I'm hoping the charger has charged us up. And we'll just take a little roll underneath the car. Oh, maybe I can plug it in. And you'll just go for a little ride here. So hold on one sec. Oh, and then this has a fuel miser exhaust system on it. It's got a full flow resonator on it, and then a second full flow resonator on it back there to get the noise down because you're running because if you run just an open exhaust all the way through on a Metro, they're really noisy, and there's no back pressure on it hardly at all. It's just perfect. It's a great exhaust system. And then this one right here, it's got brand new axles in it. You can see it's starting to get some surface area because they were put in a couple of weeks ago. And it's sunny out today, but it rains here every other day like Florida. We got another new axle and stuff over here. And yeah, it's just there's not much I guess there's really not that much to look at underneath the Metro. It's got, you know, you can see there's some, I don't know if you can actually see it, but like this car's got brand new brake pads, and the caliper's been resealed and stuff on it. And, yeah, just I thought there'd be more here to show. Get back. If you've never been underneath a Metro, minus all my grungy fingerprints on this new transmission from installing it, there's not much to it. If you need to check your transmission fluid, in all honesty, I take out the speedometer cable, and I'll show you that, because that's a great fix too. Your plug right here on the side of the tranny, it's a 15/16, and then you've got your drain plug right here that's a 3/8 ratchet. I never remove those plugs. They're a pain in the butt, and then you got to put the car up in the air to do it. Most people don't have that ability. So let's pop up and let me show you how to do that speedo cable check. You reach down here. This might be tough because there's a lot of things behind it, but you've got your speedometer cable that comes out of the firewall here, and it comes down, and there's a rubber boot down on the bottom of it. I'm going to see what I can do about showing that to you. You might have to visualize some of this with me. There's this rubber boot right here, and you can literally, let me see if I can pick it up. You can just grab it and slide it up. Oh, I don't know if I can show you that, but if you reach down here, this little rubber boot right here, it just slides up and down on the speedo tube, and then down underneath here, and I want to see if I can get a light right in there on it. This might be a tougher show than I thought. Let's see. I'll take my light off and jump in and show that to you. And we're going to go in over here. Okay, there it is. So if you see that 10 nut on that bracket down there, oh, I might have gotten in over my head here trying to show this to you. So there's that 10. Let me see if I can put your finger up here. Let's see. There's this 10 down here, and this is the water tube going across. It's actually like 6 inches back farther. It's way down here. But you can put a 10, put an extension on about a 18-inch, put a 10 socket on an 18-inch extension, and it'll actually pop up through here by the fuel lines, and you can put a ratchet right up here. And you take that 10 out that's down there, and then that aluminum housing that's holding the speedometer gear in, will just pull out with your hands. It's just an O-ring. You can't do any damage. There's no damaging anything or resetting anything. If you pull that out and look in there, and you'll see the fluid right up to the, well, on the side of the engine, or on the side of the transmission down here, you can see where the fill plug is, and it's about the bottom of the speedo gear down there. Anyhow, when you open that up, you can look down there and you can see that it's either full or not. And the reason we do that is because it's difficult to check these unless you're like in a loop shop with a pit or something, and then the plugs are always stripped out on them. Because well, they just are. They're a funky little plug. And then if you ever want to just change the fluid, which you can, pull the drain plug out underneath, drain the fluid out, and then put a funnel in there when you take that out. And that's how I do it. I shove a funnel, and it'll actually fit through all this crap. You just got to wiggle it through a transmission funnel, and you dump 2.5 quarts in it, and you're good to go. And let me push this boot back down before I forget. And this boot is really just a rain guard for moisture over the top of where the... There we go. I probably made that 10 times more complicated than it really is. It's just take that 10 bolt out and lift up the housing, look in it, see oil, put it back in and tighten it up. And you can do it all from above. And I've got the car a foot and a half off the ground or 2 feet off the ground, which makes it hard to reach in here. When it's actually down on the ground, it's much easier. And then another thing that I do that really helps, being that these motors shake and plug wire boots never seem to fit good anymore. I take and just wrap a zip tie around the boot on the coil and the distributor. Oh, let me get in there. You can see that. Just a simple zip tie, just tighten it up. And you can actually pull them on and off after you've done this, and they still work good because you just put a little tension on the boot. If not, with a brand new set of spark plug wires on a Metro, somehow the coil wire generally will find its way to fall off before you get to the first oil change. And there's nothing worse than driving down the road and the motor just blah, like the fuel pump just went out. And if you don't know that, you'll have a tow and get into a shop or get it home and then just find that you could have pushed the plug wire back on and fired it right up. And I have had that happen to me so many dozens of times over the years. Because everybody's always working on them before I get to them. And they usually have new spark plugs and plug wires and stuff on them. And by the time we get it fixed, whatever was really wrong with it, you're out test driving it, because I like to drive them about 250 miles or more. Make sure we've worked all the bugs out of them. The coil wire will vibrate off. What else is there? That's pretty much it. I also recommend everybody throw their Geo hookups away that are painted that gray color from the factory and buy chrome ones. They're fairly inexpensive and they sure look nice. Like this particular car, it is, I bet this door, it's got automatic lock, so the door probably won't even open. Let's see here, that looks terrible. Let me see what I can do here. Oh, it is open. Alright, hold on one second. I can just unplug the camera. Just afraid that the battery would go dead. Like this one, it's never had a stereo in it, so it still has a block off in it, which is really nice because that means it truly was a commuter car. There's just not much to. Here's a little something that you can do. There's a Phillips screw right here on both sides. Just slide the seats forward. This is your emergency brake housing. And you can take a 10 wrench that's right here. You'll see the cables come up in the back. And the cables are generally stretched out after 15-20 years. You can just take your wrench and just snug it up a little bit until the emergency cable or the emergency brake handle, comes up to about right there. If it pulls way up, you just tighten it up, but you just want it to come up and lock right about there. And that's a quick maintenance item you can do too. It doesn't fix, wore out brake shoes or anything, but it is the adjustment for the cable. And then the brakes actually have automatic adjuster teeth on the adjuster at the brake drum. And then, what else? I think that probably makes a pretty good video. 45 minutes, this probably was like watching grass grow. But these are the different things that you do to a Metro to make them worthy of driving again. It really isn't about, having a fancy new car, because they're not. It's really about having a commuter car that costs, $100 in parts every 30,000 miles. And that's probably including oil changes too, timing belts, that kind of stuff. It's a, really inexpensive car, and with this timing belt, or timing cover, being cut back and stuff, you can change that timing belt in, 15-20 minutes. The first time you do it, you might take an hour just because you're a little leery of it. But once you take those, that water pump pulley off, like I explained earlier, all you got to do is remove, let me turn my light back on here. I took it off my head. Once you, what, I'm going to put it right back on my head. That frees my extra hand up. Then you're, basically you're back to, just removing that 10 and the one that's underneath the pulley, and then this timing cover will come out, and all you're using it just for is the timing mark. You take that off, and now the pulley will slip out around that crank pulley. And if you don't have this, you have to take that crank pulley off, and a lot of times they just won't come off without a torch and heating them up. The Loctite's got them held on, and it's a job. I mean, you really should take I take a torch and turn the head of the bolt red hot so you can sink in that 3 inches and melt the Loctite so you can disengage it. And if you don't have that available to you, plus it's really hard because you got to take the tire off, and generally you take this motor mount out and you let the motor hang down. I put it on a jack stand and raise the body up so the engine stays in its place, and then it angles down, and you can see that in other videos I've done. But this allows you just to do, the car's just parked there, you just pop the hood open, and with a 10 and a 12 wrench you can change that timing belt in no time at all and save yourself a tremendous amount of money. I've told the story before, but you know, years ago I was on vacation and I had my daughter with me, and we were going down to the Columbia River to go do a little hovercrafting with some friends for vacation, and the car we were driving, it was going to get a timing belt and water pump service and stuff done to it, and I had thrown the parts in the rear hatch just to keep them separated so they didn't disappear on me. And we were driving that car, and got about halfway on vacation, and the timing belt broke. It was a sunny Sunday morning, and we were hauling as fast as the car would go, just wide open. You know, so we were doing like 35 miles an hour. We were hauling in the fast lane. There was no traffic out. The motor died, and we were able to coast down up to the top of an off-ramp to the stop light at the top of the off-ramp. And I hopped out, saw what had happened. I had a pretty good idea that happened anyhow. And by the time my daughter took my cell phone and called everybody and told us that Dad had ruined vacation because he drove an old beater on vacation, and that we wouldn't be showing up, I had the timing belt changed, put back on, started up, and we were back on the way. I had to call everybody back and tell them we were fine, because some of them were loading up to come save us. But it's, you know, not out of line if you wanted to change that, you know, every 30,000 miles when you put spark plugs in them. I think that's about all I can do without showing a motor that's apart or anything. And this isn't really a rebuild video. I'm just trying to do some, you know, basic general stuff that you can do and why I do some certain things. And then you can start making these cars last a lot longer, you know, where they're normally starting to get wore out at 150,000 miles. Some of these little things make it so they go 300,000. You know, like this long life block and a hill climber head and that clutch assembly and rebalancing. All of a sudden, you know, you get a car that's going to, you know, be as good as the original Geos were at 150, you know, when they start to approach 300,000. And that's not to say there's not a lot of Geos out there that say they have, you know, 300,000 on the odometer and stuff, but they're probably oil abusers and stuff, and you wouldn't drive them, you know, 100, 125 miles a day like some of you do. You know, because they just would be horrendous vehicles, oil consumption wise, and lack of power because they're wore out. You know, there's a completely different, you know, it's completely different when you get out, you know, to 300,000 miles and the car is just starting to use some oil and stuff. It's again, it makes, you know, if you back it up per mile or excuse me, you know, per mile or per month you've had it, depending on how many years, you know, it's taking you to get there. You know, generally it's just a few bucks a month and you've had brand new stuff. You know, so most of the time I don't think it's an advantage to half-ass anything, you know, just make it all brand new and then don't worry about it for 10 or 20 years. You know, even if you're driving, you know, 25,000 miles a year, you know, I mean, you're still talking about getting long ways out, you know, 10, 12 years. And and I mean, many people will testify to 100,000 miles in the motor has no oil consumption, perfect compression. You know, it's like the motor's brand new still that day. You know, I mean, even at 100, 125,000. I've got one that's just getting ready to go through 125,000 miles on a local one here in Seattle, and the guy drives 80 miles a day, and it's still just perfect. Which most oh, my throat's getting dry from talking too much. At any rate, lots of options versus the original stuff, and no reason to drive one off of Craigslist where everybody's monkeyed with everything. You know, you just go through and make it better or make it new again. And I was going to take it for a drive, but everybody knows how a car drives. And if you're interested in owning one, this one right here could be yours. But, in fact, I'll walk around it one time. I know there's another video because I just put it up like a week ago. It's a super clean Metro. I think it's a 90. Well, it's a 93 or 94 because of the round dash. The square dashes were prior to that. And then after that, you get into the 95s and it's the new body style. But, yeah, you can't really go wrong with a car like this. Oh, and this is a tall final drive in the transmission too, and that was by mistake. I actually put the wrong transmission in. I grabbed one off the shelf, and I had not planned on putting. I was just going to put the stock one back in it, so that'll help on the fuel economy too. All right, my camera is shutting off. You guys have a great one. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.